Welcome back to Curse, Code, and Crown, a live play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition podcast featuring a fully original world and campaign. I am the wizard Cronox, observer of time. Curse, Code, and Crown features our regular voiceover artists and improvisers, Laura Elizabeth as the Orc Count Eta and Princess Gwendolyn, Tyler Hewitt as Makka Deathcap, and Ryan LaPlante as Duncan Danno, alongside our dungeon master, the incredible Tom McGee. So get ready for an adventure including thrills, chills, and hope for a brighter tomorrow. It's time for Curse, Code, and Crown!
The sun is up over the consortium of Bleen, through the high trees and tall buildings. You can still see light reflecting off the water in a way that seems to light up the whole city of Sour in a pretty significant way. Gwendolyn, Makka, and Duncan. We're going to call that a short rest for the purposes of game design. Okay. So feel free to roll some hit die if you need them.
In that case, I will put my spells back. And I will roll some hit dice, because after those temporary hit points wear off, Makka's not looking so good.
Yeah, you had an evening of rest, but you are finding it hard to properly rest in the current situation.
Duncan is unharmed.
Yeah, I will also say that the poison is in effect in your system, Makka, so you aren't recovering as heartily as you normally would.
I think I'll spend 5 of my 8 hit dice to bring my health back up.
Makes sense.
Not great numbers.
Let's just say you can decide to spend more,
Yeah.
no?
Yep.
I can.
Yeah. I spent 3.
Duncan spent nothing. He's got them all. He's killing it. Because he actually just fought civilians who were running.
He shot people in the back like a real hero, like a true Dawn guard.
Yeah, and he let no one get away, no matter how much they claimed their innocence.
Yeah, I guess I will spend my other 3 to bring this up, because that was some pitiful hit dice there. This is better. All right.
Great. You have arrived at the dwelling of Phaedron Conesnout, concerned citizen, who lives. It's kind of one of the residential blocks of Sour. This is a series of you can think almost like a 3-story motel kind of situation. You see these kind of. I think they're most commonly associated with like California or Florida, or like warm climates, where it's just kind of there's that exterior kind of walkway with stairs and kind of small balconies leading to just a series of sort of single room domiciles that kind of line it. You imagine that outside of Sour, there's likely a lot more residential living that you just haven't seen. But this is just one of those boroughs that has managed to survive the industrialization of the island. Very much where Cloud and Tifa live in the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is great, and you should all play. So you've knocked on his door, and you notice immediately that Phaedron's got a lot going on. Outside of his residence, he's got a lot of like stay vigilant and watch out for your friends. The curse is everywhere, and he's got a welcome mat that says, "Please wait a foot back from the door." Like it's just there's a lot going on out here, and you get the sense that Murdoch purposefully chose the words "concerned citizen." Not as just this is who they are, but as in this is literally who they are. They've got like a neighborhood, like one of those neighborhood watch signs with like a house with an eye in it, and just like a bunch of such things. Makka, Duncan and Gwendolyn, obviously you survived a bit of a thing last night. You've had a few moments, obviously, to catch your breath. Is there anything you would have discussed prior to arriving at Phaedron Conesnout's abode?
Just outside of character, Phaedron Conesnout has the paperwork outlining the order that was to take me to Orville. That's the main thing we're looking for.
He's a big fan of the rules and of paperwork and document trails, and is quite concerned that Bleen currently doesn't have access to the Sunken Archive. If you were able to obtain the orders from there and kind of reestablish connection with the Sunken Archive,
right? The Tritons is kind of gone.
They used to get deliveries from, I think, Makka, and then just shit fell out when you left, and now they said, no library for you.
Makka, you would vaguely know this, but the Tritons are an undersea civilization that have had almost a symbiotic relationship with the Turtles for as long as you can remember, kind of living in harmony side by side. A little bit north of the sort of islands of Bleen, the oceans begin to kind of open up quite considerably. It's almost like a lake, kind of between sort of more of a lake vibe when you're actually in the islands themselves. They're broken up enough that it's not as deep, and there's it's clearly the remnants of a continent that kind of went under. But there's a pretty big drop off. And the Turtles of the consortium, being concerned about kind of the historical records of shipping going back generations in Gren, sunk them in an archive that the Tritons were kind of in charge of guarding, essentially. There's not, a lot of undersea tech in this world. So it was a pretty safe bet. The problem is that now that relationship seems to have soured. It's the unfortunate thing about being like, oh, I'm going to leave, I don't know, my SIN and all the passwords to my accounts at my friend's house, because that way, if anyone breaks into my house, they'll never get them. And then you have a falling out with your friend and you're like, shit. So currently the archive is inaccessible to the Turtles. And as a result, no paperwork is archival paperwork is accessible. So you've been told by Murdoch that Phaedron, if you can just bring him a document that says that you were assigned to go to Orville in order to help solve the curse, that'll be enough to sway him. But reestablishing connection to the Sunken Archive will that's number one with a bullet. He'll believe the paperwork, but he will advocate for you if you can give him his precious paper trails back.
Okay.
So I think Duncan would kind of have a moment with Gwendolyn in the morning and be like, so we're dealing with an entirely different society this time in terms of the Tritons. You may want to try to create some sort of alliance. Orville hasn't dealt with the Tritons previously. I didn't know any records of them when I was studying the rest of the world. So this may be an opportunity for you. I mean, obviously our priority is to get Makka what he needs for his trial, but if there was to be, one could say, a B plot in this story, it may be Princess Gwendolyn trying to engage with the Tritons as new allies, friends, whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, don't we always want more people for the Alliance of Equals?
I mean, logically, I would assume so. It's a strange thing, but since I have been separated from the Crown in terms of oaths, the Alliance of Equals is something that I would see the Dawnbreakers as supporting, but not technically members of, because we could not follow orders from a group like that. We could support.
But I thought it was an alliance, not like a hierarchical structure. No? Isn't that what we wanted?
Well, the challenge is that, I mean, it is absolutely good and useful and things that should be there, but we can't agree to any additional rules. We have the code, and the code means that we serve justice. There's a chance with any sort of organization involving the nations of the world and politics that you could have interests that would divorce yourselves from what would generally be considered justice. There's a gray area there that you need to be allowed that we cannot allow ourselves.
I don't fully understand it, but I'll try to get them into the Alliance.
Great. I'm just saying, the Alliance may at some point, as you know, have to do something kind of shady or shitty or illegal or like step on one person to save 100 of other people.
Well,
The
I mean, if
Dawnbreakers
it's an
can't do
alliance,
that.
then it's like if everyone was part of the alliance, then like as a group, I mean, wouldn't we be setting rules? So we, as a group, we couldn't like. I mean, we break our own rules.
Do you know
I
what?
don't-
This may have been a bit of a political chat that's kind of above your level, so don't worry about it. All I'm going to say is the
That's
Dawnbreakers are
condescending.
friends of your alliance.
All right.
Having had this entirely fruitful and absolutely self-affirming conversation, Gwendolyn, you're left with more questions than answers. It never occurred to you that anything ill could occur of your alliance of equals, but as Duncan leaves your side to kind of make arrangements, you do consider the societies you've looked at to date, and even in the current state of affairs in Bleen, you've seen a number of alliances fall. And I think as Duncan's words kind of ring out in your ears, you realize that the vision he has for the Dawnbreakers is much different than your personal guards, which I think you'd kind of defaulted to assuming they would be.
Yeah.
And instead, you observe the way he's been conducting himself in the various societies you've encountered, and the idea that the Dawnbreakers may be their own entity. Also, that your alliance may not always be the best thing for Gren, which I think is a newish idea, in as much as you've been so desperately just trying to survive and get your feet under you, that the actual statecraft of it has yet to really sink in. But even thinking about the noble goals of the first philosopher queen, Amalakin Solaris, Amala Solaris, there was no kin then. Yes, there was. I'm losing my own mythology. I haven't looked at my own.
Yes, she's a kin.
Yeah.
Yep. She gave that to herself. Her dream eventually imploded as well. Now, granted, it has yielded you, which is good. There's hope there, but looking around at kind of these long-standing societies, there is that the weight of history, I think, has just landed on you. Just yet another problem for poor Princess Gwendolyn to solve. That said, you are a ghost in a suit of armor. So how long you could theoretically guide this alliance is also an open question. And
you have to guide it from being one equal voice among many.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
With that, you arrive at Phaedron's. How would you like to approach? You hear the bark of his dog from inside the house.
Makka will turn to Gwendolyn and Duncan and say,
am I to assume the role of some kind of leader once again, with you two as my companions? Or is this a more delicate matter? I understand I am not well suited to these.
I think in terms of our discussion with Phaedron, yes, you should perhaps take the lead. And then we can follow up with additional questions, or I can step in if things become indelicate in a problematic way. And once we know where Phaedron is at, we can figure out our approach with the Tritons, because that may be different.
Just so. Yes, it will be done.
and Makka will like go to what like his front door, basically. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just knock.
Great. As you do, the dog goes crazy, just barking and barking away. And you actually hear a series of bells ringing inside, and then one by one, you hear just kind of the firm slap of a hand hitting mechanisms, and one by one the bells stop ringing. And then a small slot opens in the door, and a bespectacled tortle eye appears in it. And you just hear a voice that says, "And yes, what do you want?"
Phaedron Conesnout.
You want Phaedron Conesnout? What for? What are you going to do to him?
I am Makka, Deathcap. I am going to reconnect the archives of the Tritons with the consortium of Bleen.
Oh. Look, I read the rules very carefully, and I was informed, even though I would very much like that. That sounds very good. That that would be meddling with the judicial process, and I'm not entirely comfortable with the idea of the accused coming to to Phaedron's house. I'm his friend.
Stop speaking now. I have taken the poison.
Phaedron.
I am conducting my own investigation. I have taken the poison. I am operating within the laws of Bleen.
Oh, wait. Okay, so you've undertaken the challenge of proving your innocence.
Yes.
Okay, hang on. And the slot slams. You hear like some flipping of pages, and he's clearly like reading out loud to the dog. And he comes back. He's like, "All right, well, it does seem that there is a provision for that, though it is rarely executed. But it is in the rule book, so it is okay by me. I should let you know my name is not, in fact, Phaedron, as I led you to believe a moment ago. I am Phaedron Conesnout, juror and citizen of Bleen. I am very honored to be part of this trial, and if what you're attempting to do is part of you trying to prove your innocence, well, that is well within your rights, and I must admit, I would be rather happy to have access to the archives again. What do you need from me?
Direction. Information. I have been away for quite some time.
We're
Okie
looking
dokie.
specifically for how things fell out with the Tritons.
Wait, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
I am Duncan Danno, first captain of the Dawnbreakers. This is Princess Gwendolyn of Orville. We're here to assist the turtle. Now, how did things fall out with the Tritons? What seems to be their largest complaint? How can we heal the enmity between your people?
Foreign nations meddling in the affairs of Bleen. Not sure how I feel about this. Duncan, you flex your hand once near the grip of Mr. Bang. It would be so satisfying, but also entirely against all of your codes. But this is just, you recognize this from your days walking the beat on Orville of just the frustrating problems that can't be solved by a duelist. Can you roll me a persuasion check, please?
That one.
He just says, well, I am happy to assist in the Makka Deathcap's attempts to clear his name. I will not stand for foreign intervention into the affairs of Bleen.
You are in luck, then. Princess Gwendolyn has lost her throne, and Duncan Danno is no longer oath-bound to her. They are just folk now, my companions.
Oh, your companions. So they're part of your legal team?
Well,
Makka,
I mean,
looks-
like,
Correct. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, you could have just led with that. I certainly wouldn't want to stand in the way of legal representation.
We will open the door now, yes?
No, I'm much more comfortable this way. I don't want you to see my secrets. As an individual citizen, I have many, and they are mine, and mine alone.
I do not care for your secrets.
Well, I do, so you can't see them. Now, listen. I'm glad to see you found yourself some, admittedly, rather unconventional representation, but at least you didn't get suckered by True Good to be True, she's the worst. She loses every case. The Tritons have been having a lot of difficulty with the spores we used to send them. You used to be responsible for that, I think, right? You're one of the people who did that. Yeah. So they've been really unhappy with the product of late. And I think they got kind of mad when Sour started just kind of dumping waste spores into the ocean near them there. They said it was causing some real problems for them down there. And then they stopped talking to us. The last person we sent down just kind of came back up as a shredded puddle of blood. So that was very concerning to me. So yeah. But it means we can't access any of our paperwork. And I've got several things I would like to follow up on. There's several shipments that I do not think were properly processed that have gone out in the past few months alone. It like waits as though you're going to be 100% in on this being a tremendous problem.
Yeah, no, I just have my next question.
I figured.
Does the consortium offer methods of transportation for those that are not turtle, for those that are air breathers?
Oh no. No. The whole point was that only turtles would be able to reach it. That's the whole reason they sunk it underwater. But I mean, I guess if you breathed real hard and held your breath, you might be able to make it down in time. But the whole point was to stop the surface dwellers from reaching it.
I'll turn around to my two companions here and say,
there are magics that I know that can help you with this, but I do not have them at my disposal right now. Perhaps.
I guess this is an awkward question for us collectively, but Gwendolyn, do you breathe?
I mean, not really.
Gwendolyn will be fine to reach the archive.
And it is only you, Duncan Danno.
I'll also say, Makka, if you have a spell that is not prepared, while I'm not giving you a full rest to get your shit back, I will allow you to swap out spells because you're under some time limits here. But also, if you just need to like sit for an hour and like rework what you have prepared, that's fine. You know, like it's yeah.
I mean, sometimes fate also suggests, perhaps splitting the party. I've heard that this third figure, Darna Heavecrop, has a task that might require someone with my particular skill set.
Oh, she's a lot. I deal with her in the jury. She's a lot.
So I could go deal with her. He just says deadpan, just like pausing for Phaedron and then just continuing. So I could go perhaps see if I could solve her concerns and her problems while you journey down to deal with the Tritons.
I mean, I don't mind. Realistically, based on what you said, it's like you were leaving things up to Makka and me, so you're like, we can't really help you till you're on your own.
Don't love you anymore. She adds.
Staying out of it.
Yeah.
It's so delightful to not have to make you feel better so I could do my job.
after this little this what's the word I'm looking for? This break that like Tom has kind of given me in terms of like preparing spells. I guess like in characters like,
oh wait, I just remembered. I do in fact have the ability to grant you water breathing, Duncan.
For how
Should
long?
you wish to accompany us.
So,
For
Duncan,
how long can you do that?
About 1 hour would be the amount of time before you would need to hold your breath.
How long does it take to get down, if you don't mind me asking, Phaedron, but from the surface to the Triton?
you'd be fine
All right.
with an hour. Well, but so both options are viable. It's kind of up to the three of you. Expedience is not a bad call. Sorry, Tyler, you got some?
24 hours. I clicked the wrong spell. 24 hours.
24 hours. So Duncan, you can now go to the archive with Gwendolyn and Makka, or you can go try and solve the problem that has been kind of earmarked as yours to solve, that they realistically will not likely be able to assist you with. From a DM's perspective, either option is fine for me. It kind of depends on what you want to do. The faster you get this done, the better it will be for the trial, because the jurors will have time to like confer and also to like kind of advocate and like make sure that their stances are clear and everything else. Murdoch will also be able to ensure that they have in fact flipped. But it also means it'll be harder because you won't have the support of the party for either thing.
Makka, this is your trial, so I believe this decision might need to lie with you. Would you rather we separate and carry out these two missions in a slightly more limited capacity, but perhaps at a greater rate? Or would you like me to journey with you to the Tritons?
I believe diplomacy is a strength of yours, one which I lack. And this poison has been administered with the specific outcome that we have our time to conduct all three of these investigations. I feel we are at our strongest together. Perhaps there are ways we can help you with this irrepayable debt.
All right. Well, this is just a weird question about your water spell, but can I still breathe air while I've got the water breathing on, or do we have to choose?
No, you breathe underwater just as well as you breathe the air.
All right, then yes, let's journey to the Tritons and down a heave crop. I'm sure it won't be that hard.
And uttering those fatally dumb words, the three of you head off to make your way to the archive. Meanwhile, Ita, you've been conversing not all night, but Ren has come back to kind of further elucidate you. You told her what you knew about the Apex Institute, which was again not nothing. The Empire is geographically your neighbor states. You're relatively close to each other, so not nothing. And Ren was impressed that you kind of had the lay of the land. But upon I assume you'd be kind of asking, what do you think Ida's line of questioning for Ren would be, having told her what Ida knows about Apex?
I think she'd be very blunt. It's like, why are you asking? What is your interest in this? And what will you do to help me? Since obviously I do not understand why you would come here unless you were going to help in some way.
And she smiles kind of sadly and says, I do occasionally wish that I was the altruistic type, but that truly is not in my nature. You are correct. I do want something from you. The consortium is imperiled by our lack of relationship with both your empire and the Institute. I fear we made a rather heinous mistake some time ago. Our nation thrives on the ability to profit off of other people's work. I'm sure you've noticed this amongst our architecture and the way we've structured our business. And for a long time, other nations were more than happy to merely allow us to be the go-between. It made everything easier and made us very wealthy. Unfortunately, my ancestors were somewhat greedy, and following the death of the Necrotis and the settling of the world felt a lot smaller. All the nations had been in contact during the war, had been working together, and suddenly the need for a middle person was slightly reduced. It caused a tremendous amount of financial strain on our system. A lot of people, my ancestors amongst others, felt that it was unfair. So we began to do whatever we could to reclaim our stake in the world. We raised our prices. We took more off the top. We began to attempt as best we could to create products unique to us. Unfortunately, in our mad dash to earn back the approval of those who realized we had been somewhat conning them, we gave something to the Apex Institute that perhaps we should not have. You see, there was an incursion here some time ago. Creatures not of this world were found rampaging across Bleen. Several of our hunters fell to these creatures. Two escaped, but one was defeated by our first blade. We did what we could with the body, studied it as best we could, but we were getting very few answers. So when Apex partially asked, mostly demanded access to the body, we obliged. And it would seem that they have gathered some tremendous insight from it. For now, they are reaching a point where they no longer need us. They are fully capable of delivering their technology to the world without us. And if Bleen is indeed cut out of this, we will die. The Empire sides with Apex, as they always have, and as a result have been slowly cutting us off as well. All we have are the contracts, but with our Ndara-based products failing, we find ourselves less useful than ever to the world at large. My daughters deny it, of course. They believe they're doing a wonderful job, but I've lived long enough to see the writing on the wall. The curse may be killing us physically, but our relationships to the outside world, our inability to change, and our insistence on profit at all costs seem to be killing us as well in a different way. So I ask you, Ita, the orc accountant, because I am shocked that anyone from the Empire would find their way here, but now it would seem that you are perhaps not an ambassador at all, but rather someone who is seeing these cracks themselves and seeking to determine who made them and how to solve them. Would that be fair?
Yes, this is true. There is clearly something nefarious going on that is being kept from the general people. It is not the entire Empire of Numbers who is orchestrating this. It is definitely a group of people. I do not know how large, but I first discovered it at Sprangbrek.
Yes, Fortress Sprangbrek. I understand whatever you all did there has meant their production capabilities have been reduced almost to nothing. Is that true?
Yes, well, I mean, what they were doing was devastating.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's fine. That's a problem for my daughters, not for me. And besides, I wouldn't mind seeing some of the other dwarven clans step into the sunlight a little bit more. They are rather inventive. I've seen some truly wonderful things from some of the other fortresses. Sprangbrek always struck me as a little bit too easy, a little too fast and furious, but the young are like to be that, are they not, Ita?
Indeed. It was quite disturbing to me that I did not know about this creature that was at the Apex Institute.
Oh,
what was
dearie,
it?
They will not tell anyone. The term we've been using is kobold, but very few left in Bleen are willing to speak of this. It is a national embarrassment. But no, the Apex Institute, though allied to the Empire of Numbers, likely has many secrets they have failed to share. After all, you can't exactly be on the cutting edge if you're sharing all of your findings with everyone now, can you?
Elon.
Wink.
I suppose not. It does not seem right. However, I must accept that is the truth, because it does make sense with what I've seen. Then I suppose you seem to know quite a bit about the Apex Institute and this issue. I mean, how is it that you know this? How did you come by this information?
She smiles kind of sadly and just says, I've lived a long time. And one of my first partners, my first wife, was one of those who hunted the creatures through the swamps and the woods. She never quite understood what happened. The creatures were powerful and again caused a lot of destruction. We even had emissaries from the Shadowlands arrive and demand answers. She always wanted to know where they came from and why they were here. She also was the first one who indicated to me that our world changed significantly after they arrived. The presence of the base element glomera of Sindara, the development of Indara, none of it would have been possible before they arrived. Something changed when they came here. So she kept tabs on them through a number of her fellow warrior connections, and she conveyed those to me. We had crazy conspiracy pillow talk, darling. It was wonderful. Now, sadly, she was several years my elder and passed away long ago, but I've kept an ear to the ground, as they say. And now very few even believe it happened. With the deployment centers constantly attempting to become slightly more efficient, people don't want to hear about ancient history anymore. It's one of the curses of the long-lived. But for me, that history remains fresh.
Indeed. Indeed, yes. History can tell us much, I believe. However, I am more concerned with the present. So, what? This is quite frustrating. I thought you would be more helpful in terms of what is actually going on in the Empire, but you do not seem to know these things.
Yeah, who would have thought that the merchant queen of the Turtles wouldn't have information about your own home country's inner workings? That truly does fall to me. Listen, as the one not in the jail cell, I must say I think I'm perhaps in a better situation than you are. I merely wanted to equip you with knowledge so that when you leave this place, which I am well aware I never shall again, you might be able to put an end to some of these things and perhaps set them to rights. But it seems that for once, the Presidentia staff got something right. You truly are very rude and very annoying, and I can see I've wasted my time. I go to my deathbed knowing that I have accomplished nothing here today, and if you manage to prove me wrong, please find a necromancer, raise me, and tell me, because at this point, I should truly have realized to never trust a pencil pusher. And she turns her wheelchair and wheels her way out.
That just seemed, you seem to be rude on purpose. I was just stating a fact. This is, oh dear.
The prison door slams with alarming finality, and Ida, you are yet again left alone with your microfiche.
This episode of Curse Code and Crowd Sound was mixed and edited by Laura Hemstra, and the campaign was created by Tom McGee. Our original theme music was composed by Landon Knoblock, and Curse Code and Crown's logo was created by the brilliant Decapitated Markers. If you want to follow our players or our DM on Twitter, you can reach out to Laura at EL Hamstring, Ryan at the Ryan LaPlante, Tyler at Tyler_Hewitt, Tom McGee at McGeeTD, or you can message our whole company at DumDumDice. So please, join us again for more Curse, Code, and Crown!
Dum-Dums and Dice has to give a special thank you to the supreme beings of our Patreon at this time. Christian Menicola, Long, the Half-Blind Prophet, James Cuellar, Charles Grams, Christopher Little, Sue One, George Dolby, One True Artistry, Orion Birchfield, Lord of Bradovic, Noel Lewis, Scott Garland, Anthony Griffin, Chet Awesome Laser, Jordan Neesmith, Benjamin V, Gavin and Abby McDonald, Taryn Hefner, Cade Peters, Richard Cranium, Christian Mendez, Anna Zed, Eric Williams, Logan, Fire Unfriendly, Great Dane, Acrix, and Jill and Noel LaPlante. If you want your name to be added to this list, you can join our Patreon too at patreon.com/dumdumdice. Thanks to them, and a little bit of thanks to you.